So once you understand this, why would you actually want to make your job a lot more harder and spend a lot more money trying to do the same thing? Does that make sense to you? Because it doesn't to me. Hey, what's up guys? At this point, a lot of people have been following through with like the free training that I've put out on my channel, as well as some of the videos, and people are starting to click the link down below and actually go ahead and take action towards setting up their store. And then even running actually some Facebook ads. A few people have been sending me screenshots and stuff, so they're making their first sales. But the big thing when setting up your first store that I find a lot of people are asking me is, okay, this is all great. I know how to do it, but what product should I be selling and what industry should I be looking at? And I want to introduce you, if you haven't heard of the word before, the word niche. All right, now niche essentially is the same thing as industry. So clothing is a niche, baby clothing is a niche, pet toys is a niche. All those different things are a niche. So that's what that word refers to. All right, now I wanted to first say, I don't believe in choosing a niche or choosing an industry first and then looking for a product. So I don't think you should say, okay, I want to set up a store in whatever, say like the Barbie niche, and then somewhere there I'm going to try and find like some form of Barbie toy thing. That's probably a bad example. Wouldn't recommend that. I've never even seen that niche come up before, but you get what I'm saying. I recommend finding a product, right, and then taking the product and matching it to a niche. So be browsing through Amazon, through eBay, through AliExpress, and actually find a tangible product which you think is good, that you think can scale. Then go look at it on Facebook and look for the industry, and then kind of find what niche you should be falling into. All right. But regardless, I do want to just make this video because immediately a lot of people are first coming to the decision that, okay, I'm going to set up an online clothing store and I'm going to set up an online brand. Okay, and sell my own clothing. Now, there are huge benefits to selling clothing. All right. The first thing is it's generally easy to find really high quality pictures with really good models in them. So it's easy on the eyes in terms of Facebook ads. The second and probably the most important thing about clothing is your margins are ridiculously huge. Like, it's insane. You can buy a hoodie online for like $39 and you can get the same thing on AliExpress for like $6, $8. So your margin, which means your profit, is ridiculously high. But here's the thing with clothing. A hoodie is a hoodie. Whether I buy it from that store or that store, it's the same thing. So the only thing that makes a difference is the brand. Okay, and this is what tons of people are not understanding. Branding is the most important thing when it comes to clothing. People buy Off-White, Gucci, because of the brands. People will buy certain shoes and stuff because it's the same kind of industry, not because of the shoe. A t-shirt from Gucci and a t-shirt from H&M is going to keep you just the same amount of warmth. It's going to protect your skin exactly the same. There's zero difference. There's a massive difference in price and there's a massive difference in demand because of the brand. Okay, now once you have a brand, if you're doing clothing, you are in a phenomenal space because you're going to make lots of money, and people generally are going to buy more than one item. The difference is though, building a brand is incredibly expensive. All right, it's not cheap to build a brand. You know, I think I spoke about it in an earlier video, but people like Coca-Cola, Adidas, Nike, they sponsor massive football teams. They spend billions of dollars a year on digital ads. Now you coming in there with no brand at all and trying to sell your clothing, it doesn't make sense. The only way that you're going to make it successful is if you make a really branded store. Now that's fine. That's really easy to do, and I would definitely say that every store that you set up needs to be branded. The problem with clothing is your competition is very high. Especially because it's the first thing people think about when they set up a store. So a majority of the products on AliExpress and stuff are already being drop shipped in some form or another by someone else because it's the easiest one to think up, it's the easiest one to set up, and it just makes a little bit more sense. Now the other thing that I want to touch on here is if you think about how do ad agencies work, okay? So when I talk about an ad agency, ad platform, or ad marketplace, that is Google ads and Facebook ads. Essentially, the more people you have trying to show an ad to one person, the more expensive it will be because you've got more people bidding on their position. Okay? Now, what happens here is certain companies will just set a ridiculously high bid because they're not trying to make a profit. When Coca-Cola wants to show someone an ad, they don't care if that person goes and buys a Coke or does whatever. They just want to put their brand in front of his face, his or her face. So that they're not trying to make profit, but you are. You are not in the same space. You're not in the same kind of financial position. You cannot afford to have, $3-4 to show someone one ad and then they don't buy at all. Okay. So try and think about that. Clothing, you've got massive brands with huge budgets that you're competing against. All right. So that's the first thing. The second thing is think about how you're going to target them. Okay. If you want to sell women's clothing, for example, your target audience pretty much should be every single woman on Facebook, theoretically. Yeah, you could maybe target down as like, if you're selling more luxury stuff, you can do targeting of luxury brands. But if you think about it, if you don't have any data and you're trying to target people who like luxury brands like Gucci and Louis Vuitton and stuff, you're still going to find it really difficult because the audiences go up into the millions. So now you're going to have this massive, very, very broad targeting of like 6 to 20 million people, depending on whatever kind of clothing you're trying to sell. And if you're just trying to sell clothing in general, now you're looking at hundreds of millions of people. You don't have enough money and budget to show your ad to every single person. So what happens? You need data. Gucci, Louis Vuitton, they use their data that they've built up over years and spent billions of dollars acquiring. They take that data and then that gets used to segment the audiences and only show the ads to the right people. But you're not in the same position. So you're going to come in there with nothing, and probably if you're watching this right in the beginning, you're not going to have a lot of skills. So you're not going to have a lot of knowledge in terms of Facebook. You're not going to have a lot of experience, and you're probably not even going to have a lot of money. So, you trying to come in there, compete with these guys. Plus, if you think about it, the quality of clothing on AliExpress is not in the same level, right? It's not bad, but it's not world class either. And you need to be honest with that. The other thing is also now you're competing with Amazon, who has their own clothing stuff going on. And you have all these things. Now, the thing that does come out of this, where it does do well, because I don't want to just smash clothing as an industry, because it is an actually really, really good industry to be in because of the profit margins. But there's something called POD, or print on demand. Okay, this is also done, so it's the same ad setups as Facebook. It's also done through Shopify. It's the same thing. The only difference is you're not using products on AliExpress. You are printing them as the demand comes. All right, so custom designs. So let's say you came up with a name for your brand that you thought was really, really cool, and you design on your computer this image of a t-shirt with the brand's name and a slogan and like some image. Okay, now if 0 people come to buy that store, 0 of those t-shirts will be printed. All right, so you still have no inventory cost. If 10 people come to buy that item, 10 of those shirts will be printed. So effectively, as the person buys the shirt, right, another company prints that one shirt and then sends that one shirt to the person wherever they are. So it's got the same benefits of drop shipping, where you don't have any inventory and stuff. But at this point, you remember your margins come down a little bit, because obviously printing on demand is a lot more expensive, because their factory has to go and set up a printer and set up all their stuff. So generally your margins are a little bit less, but if you have an established brand, you can increase that dramatically. Okay, that's where this comes in. The problem with that is you have to be very, very creative. Okay, so if you have some idea for like a t-shirt or a hoodie with some very, very fancy design that you think will become viral or will do really, really well, that is something that you can look at. Okay, but if you like me, who I would never be someone who designs clothes, it's just not my personality, so I would not be able to do that. Yes, I do print on demand, and I have had stores, because remember, print on demand could be anything. Like if you wanted to print a custom name on a necklace or something, that's the same kind of thing. But in specific clothing industries, I don't do anything there. Okay, but I do know lots of people that do really, really well, because they come up with designs which culturally does well. And if that's you, then go for it. I will maybe do a video on it if you guys are really interested. But a big thing here is, because I know a lot of people are going to think, okay, it's going to be really cheap to set up this store. The more complicated you get with your shirt or your hoodie, the more expensive it is to print. So the trick is not coming up with some cool design, it's coming up with a design which is minimal enough to the point where it will be cheap enough to print so that you can sell it and still make a profit, okay? And that's a huge skill, because if you come up with this hoodie with like writing all over it and I don't know, like different types of images with different colors and a whole lot of stuff going on, it's going to be incredibly expensive to print it. So you're not going to be able to make much profit, so it's probably not even worth doing it unless you are trying to build a brand. But if you're watching this, generally just trying to put in a little bit of money and get a lot of money out. Alright, so to sum up what I've been saying, I would not recommend if you're a beginner. Okay, so if you have not got previous Facebook skills, you don't have a lot of money, and you haven't really had any successful stores going up and doing really well, I would recommend staying away from the whole fashion, the whole clothing, even jewelry and accessories, all of that. I would recommend staying away from those industries, right? Stay away from those niches. Go and choose a niche that has still a huge demand for it, so it still has a fairly good fan base and a good audience who are willing to buy, but not to the point where you're competing with almost everyone and you need massive branding. And you know, like if you were to sell, I know a lot of people do really well selling outdoor stuff, so like if you're going camping and stuff, like all the gadgets you take, when people use that, it's functional. So if I have a very, I think one of them is a rotating flashlight thing. It is a winning product, by the way. You should go check that out. Like a rotating flashlight. People buy that because of it's a rotating flashlight. If I put it outside of my tent or whatever, it will work really well, and it has a function, right? People don't look at their flashlights and say, okay, so I've got two flashlights, but I'm going to buy that one because everyone will know what that brand is instead of that one. Right, you don't have the same stigma attached to it. Right, so just think about that when you're choosing your niche. And if you're not subscribed, do so. I will see you guys in tomorrow's video.